Welcome. Hopefully you all are here for the introduction to Pathways here at Oak Park. Hopefully you can see my screen. It should be blue and say Pathways Introduction. So we are going to go ahead and get started at 6 o'clock. I'm sure there's going to be other people jumping on, but I want to make sure that we have enough time for questions and everything. So my name is Jane Stanley. I am the College and Career Facilitator here at Oak Park.
Hi, good evening. I'm Chris Sarton. I'm the principal here at Oak Park High School. Just want to take a moment to say hello to all of you and welcome to the Oak Park family. We don't normally get to say that this early in the school year, but 2020 is a lot of new firsts. So I'm just going to speak a little bit about the background to Pathways, but Dr. Stanley here is going to take us through most of the evening. So I do know that we'll want to it looks like most of you already do. You're muted and you've got your video turned off, just that way it's not a distraction. But I just typed in the chat to put any questions you have there during the presentation. So I'll be monitoring that chat for Dr. Stanley, and we'll do my best to answer your questions in live time. Anything we can't answer right then, we can be sure to do at the end. So Dr. Stanley, anything else before we get rolling?
Nope, I think we're ready.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for being here. And we look forward to presenting just a little bit about Pathways and the different schools that we have here at Oak Park beginning in the fall of 2021. So really, this is the only slide I'm going to speak about just because Dr. Stanley is new to Oak Park and new to the position. I was a part of the district-wide team that helped develop this portrait of a graduate. And really, these conversations started several years ago. And really was a big part of our strategic plan at Oak Park High School when I was an assistant principal. I'm now in my 8th year at Oak Park. And so these are conversations that we've been having since I first came to the building in the role of an assistant principal. And we really wanted to think about how we could make school more relevant, more engaging, and more interesting to our students. If you look at the data across the country, high school is not a fun experience for a lot of students when you talk about schoolwork. It's when they're least engaged. Only about 1 out of 3 high schoolers is usually engaged in their schoolwork compared to 75–80% of elementary students that love coming to school each and every day. So we really wanted to think about how can we make our curriculum, our day-to-day activities at Oak Park High School more interesting, engaging, and relevant to our students. So the other high schools were asking the same question. So we came together and we developed this portrait of a graduate. And when you look at these 7 skills, integrity, learner's mindset, problem solving, adaptability, communication, collaboration, and empathy, that really focuses on the skills that we feel that students will need to be successful after they leave Oak Park High School. So that is our mission. It's about empowering students to be successful after they leave high school. I think if the pandemic has shown us anything, because we love our kids so much, a lot of times we're enabling them rather than empowering them. We make sure they have what they need for school. We make sure they turn in their work on time. We make sure they do this. We make sure they do that. And those are all wonderful things, but are we building these skills that they're going to use when they leave Oak Park High School and one day we're no longer there to take care of them? So what this looks like in the classroom setting, I don't want to steal Dr. Stanley's thunder, I'll let her get rolling, but it's just a much different experience than any of us grew up having. It's much less about the teacher being in front of the classroom, and it's much more about the students getting their hands dirty every day, working with each other, learning, growing, and trying new things each and every day. So we're very excited about this portrait of a graduate, and that's what's really going to lead us into tonight's conversation around our 4 different schools and pathways. So I will turn it over to you, Dr. Stanley.
Perfect. And Pathways is really about connecting academics with the real world experience. So many times as we are teaching students, they ask the question, when am I ever going to use this? And program is really about making that connection. So it prepares all students for both post-secondary education and career opportunities. So we're not just focusing on the students that are going to college or to a 2-year school or trade school. We're looking at all students, those who want to go into employment right after school as well. This program will help prepare them for that. These are the different schools that we will have available to them here at Oak Park. And the first one, School of Business Leadership and Entrepreneurship, the School of Design, Innovation, and Technology, School of Health and Wellness, and the School of Public and Commercial Service. Those are the 4 different schools you'll see below the strands, and those are a little bit more specific within those schools. So to kind of help you wrap your brain around, well, what does my student do? Where do they go? Here we go. So here are, again, the 4 schools, and we looked at it as possible careers. And we're not asking your student to decide exactly what career they want to do. They're in 8th grade. They don't need to be deciding that. We're looking at how are we going to engage them? Where are their interests? And we find that a lot of students, maybe they know what career they want to go into, and they can look at those careers, and that would, you can see how they represent all the different schools. Now, if your student is looking at any of these careers and saying, I don't see anything that interests me, we had all of our 8th graders go through Missouri Connections, which is an interest inventory. And they did this in the past couple of weeks at Antioch. And whether they were virtual or in person, they logged in, and it was an interest inventory. They asked them a lot of questions about, do you like to work with your hands? Do you like to work with people? Questions of that sort. And at the end, it put them in what they call a career cluster. That career cluster directly aligns with each of these schools. So that's another way that we can help students choose what school they think is best for them. And again, remember, this is more about a lens that they're going to be learning through, not choosing their career that they're going to stay with for the rest of their lives. So some of the different experiences that they are going to be able to engage in during the pathways, their 4 years in high school, they will have a lot of guest speakers come in. If they choose the health and wellness pathway, they will have every kind of doctor, nurse, maybe we're looking at therapy, nutritionists. They'll have guest speakers that will come in and really talk to them about all the different careers and all the different avenues within each school. They will, if they choose, they can do a job shadow. We'll be working with client-based projects. So they'll actually be working with businesses within the metro area that have different projects for students to be working on. So they'll start to get that interaction of, I learned this in the classroom. This is how I use it now that I'm out in the workplace. They'll have the opportunity to do internships. And we will still be partnering with all of our off-campus programs, including Northland CAPS, NCC, Maple Woods Community College. They'll have access to career fairs, mock interviews, and our goal is that every senior is going to have some form of a capstone project, whether that could be their internship, or maybe they're in graphic design and it's putting their portfolio together, but really having that capstone culminating project at the end of the Pathways experience. So again, we're really looking at taking students and having them interact with business partners and really learning, when they learn in the classroom, this is how you're going to use that information. And then engaging in those authentic projects we just talked about, and really just learning to think critically and using challenging material. And we are looking at through an industry lens and being able to have them really dig through that information and understand and critically think through different problems. So a lot of the questions have been, what is my freshman, what is their schedule going to look like compared to past years? They will still be doing their 4 core classes, and then they will have 1 tech core class. That tech core class is going to be determined by the school that the student has chosen. For example, if they're going into business leadership and entrepreneurship, their freshman year, their tech core class will be an introduction to business class. If they go in design, innovation, and technology, they could choose to go more the art route and do creative design 1. They could do PLTW engineering, or you could look at health and wellness and do PLTW biomed. So they will have 1 tech core class, and they still will have all 3 elective courses they can choose from. So if they're into choir, if they're into band, any of those elective courses that were available before will still be available for students to choose from. And then as they move into their junior and senior year, they will have those opportunities to do Northland CAPS or NCC or any of the off-campus programs that we offer. So this was a quick overview of everything that Pathways encompasses and what your student will be experiencing next year. Please use the chat function. I see there's quite a few questions coming in, which is great. So please use that to ask any questions. If you do have questions specific to your student, maybe certain needs or certain, you're not understanding where they specifically would fit, or if they want to take a different combination of courses, please reach out to either Dr. Sarton or myself. Our emails are on here, and I'll leave these up. And that's also the phone number. And you can talk to either of us or their counselors at any time just about, how does this work? How do classes work? I want to do this course. Can I do it if I'm in this pathway? So Chris, I'll let you kind of ask any of the questions that have come up in the chat.
Yes, yeah, a couple of great questions have come up already. that have that maybe pertain to everyone, just some of those universal questions, and then some that are maybe a little more specific. So a big question that is always asked is, can students switch? Absolutely, they can switch. I'll tell you, the companies, the consultants that we partner with find it very rare for students to switch, because one of the big advantages, and I was monitoring the chat, so while I've looked at Dr. Stanley's presentation, I hope I'm not being redundant, but one of the big benefits of having a school the size of Oak Park with 4 smaller schools is that community, that family feel. So a lot of times our students find their niche within that school, and find their peer group, and find the teachers that they really like and trust. So it's pretty rare for a student to want to leave that support system. However, it is certainly an option, because as we know, a lot of students change their mind about things they want to do. And if they're passionate and want to pursue a different school or pathway, we will absolutely support that. Another general question that came up that a lot of people usually ask about is, how do we guide students down this pathway in terms of what they're going to do, what's going to be their interests in the courses they take. We've been practicing at Oak Park for several years. Again, when I first got to Oak Park, we had we placed a very large emphasis on making sure that students were becoming prepared for life after high school. So thinking about what were career choices they might be considering. So currently, even though we haven't started the schools and the pathways, every year students develop post-secondary goals with action steps. So our counselors, our teachers are well versed in making sure that students, basically you start with your passion. What is it you're most passionate about? What is it you would like to do? If you could make $1 million doing anything, what would that be? And that's usually a great way to start the conversation. Then we peel back the layers to find out what it is that students are interested in, and match them with some appropriate career choices. Dr. Stanley, feel free to hop in as you're seeing questions. So would you want to field the one about pathways and Missouri Connections? Are they the same? What's the difference?
So Missouri Connections is an interest survey. It probably took your student 20 minutes to answer the questions. At the end, it said, hey, you are best suited in this career cluster. And those career clusters, they had health and wellness, they had business, they had finance. So they tie very closely to the different schools that we are offering your student. So they are different in the sense that Missouri Connections is kind of a stepping stone, especially for those students that don't know what they want to do. However, if your student, let's say they scored really high and they say health and wellness is a career cluster for your student, and they're like, but I really want to go into graphic design, go where their heart is. This is all about learning through the lens that they're interested in. So everything from Missouri Connections is a guide to help them choose a specific school, but it's not necessarily you have to do it that way.
And there was someone again ask a question, how often can students switch? There's not really a limit on that, but if they did it more than once, it would start to make their course selection tricky. Even before we went to schools and pathways, students mapped out their entire high school course selection as early as 8th grade. And then we would make changes as needed, but the more changes you make, the tougher that makes for you to still realize some of your goals. So students can change. Again, we don't see it very often when we've studied other schools, but that is certainly an opportunity. I think Kelly asked about enrollment for 9th grade. Enrollment, students, I believe, would start selecting courses at the 8th grade level. Dr. Stanley, would that be in March? So we start getting more focused after the winter break and then the semester break in January, and really start having one-on-one conversations with students, where they would both select the school, potentially their pathway, and then what courses they would want to take. One other benefit is we are changing how our schedule works to accommodate schools and pathways. So in years past, freshmen only had 3 electives to choose in addition to their 4 core, and this year they will have 4 electives to choose in addition to their 4 core. So the class of 2025 is going to, they're all going to have an opportunity to take an additional class that previous classes had not taken. If you came late to the presentation, that was a question. We are going to record it, and we're going to record the one on Thursday. Whichever one we think is most beneficial, we'll send out, or we may even send out both, just so you can maybe choose the one that you were trying to get on the first night. And that's the same answer I would give to it. Looked like maybe someone was having trouble connecting to the audio. If anyone had any trouble, we'll make sure that we push this out, and our contact information is here where you could ask us if you have any questions. Dr. Stanley, another question is, will students have more than one option for the tech core class, if you want to field that?
It depends, especially your freshman year. If you're going into the School of Business, their Tech Core class is just Introduction to Business. Now, if you're going into Design, Innovation, Technology, you can choose to go the engineering pathway. You can choose to be more the arts pathway with creative design. Or you can choose to go into the computer science or technology piece, which is a PLTW. So in some of them, you do have that option to look at a couple different courses that you can take freshman year. However, most of them are just introduction to that pathway. And really, like, the introduction to business will be an introduction to all things business, you know, from the finance to the marketing to the entrepreneurship side. And then they can really start to think, oh, that was kind of cool. I think I want to study more, you know, the entrepreneurship side. And then their coursework would kind of look similar to the entrepreneurship side as they went sophomore through senior year.
And there were also some families that were just asking about where would this career fall, where would that career fall. So I know some that came up were like attorney. So you're probably going to be in these the school of public service, but it made the courses you take still the electives you take. So you'd want to get involved in speech and debate. You want to take some of our high level social studies and ELA courses. So some of those things, someone talked about journalism, and just, it kind of depends on what the student's interest is. We really want to start with what are they passionate about? Because I think journalism is a great example. If you could, that could go a million different ways. So what is it that they're passionate about? Do they love reporting? Do they love producing? You know, or do they want to be an anchor? They're just all these different levels, and that could impact what school they would go into. Some are a lot easier. If you want to be an engineer, you know, you're going to go into the School of DIT, but that doesn't mean you're not going to want to take courses that maybe could also fall in different pathways just based on what some of your interests are and what some of your passions are. Somebody asked if this will replace Northland CAPS. It will not. Those internships are still available. And we actually stole Dr. Stanley away from Northland CAPS. When she said she was interested in this position, I was very excited because I knew that she would bring a wealth of knowledge and experience. So she was in the Northland CAPS program. So not only does she have a lot of the connections and networking that happen within Northland CAPS, but she just understands how it impacts students as well.
And a big piece of that too, Dr. Sarton went over the portrait of a graduate, and really looking at that, we call them market value assets. We want your students to graduate with a +1. What is going to set them apart from every other student that's graduating in the KC Metro? And a big piece of that is our off-campus, partnering with the off-campus programs, because they provide those internships, they provide those client-based projects. So really, it's not about replacing anything. It's about how can we put them in the fold, and how can we really make this a good partnership so that the students are benefiting and leaving Oak Park with kind of an added benefit, a +1 that they wouldn't have maybe had.
Sherry, I was getting ready to answer your question by typing, but I think it's a really good question. She asked, and I want to make sure we get to Aaron and Lee as well. But Sherry asked if there's a limit to how many students can enroll in each pathway. The answer is yes. We do need to balance our schedule, but we're certainly going to try to make sure we're also honoring what students are passionate about. I think a really good example is if you sit in a room with 20 students, half or 3/4 may say they want to go into the medical field. Then when you really start asking them why, they talk about how much money they make or different things like that. Or, you know, I like working with animals, or I like working with people. Well, there are a wealth of careers where you can do those things without necessarily just looking at health sciences. So again, really starting to think about what they're passionate about, and that allows us to balance those pathways out a little bit. So, but some people or some students come in 9th grade and they say, I absolutely want to be a surgeon. I know that's what I want to do. Well, then we definitely want to get you into our School of Health Services. Aaron asked, I might let you field this one, Dr. Stanley. Will there only be one tech class per year, or is only one tech class offered their freshman year?
The freshman year, it's more about introductory to the program. However, you can start looking at those as electives too. So you will be able to, you know, as you move forward, if there's something that you're interested in, maybe it's creative design, but you're in the health and wellness, you're absolutely still able to take those courses. However, the tech core for your pathway, we do offer every year, there will be a class within that tech core.
And that goes a little bit back to what Dr. Stanley said about your market value assets and having that expertise in a certain area. So Lee asked a great question. How does this fit into the early college program? Still want to make sure that students have that opportunity. It just may mean some of the classes they take at Maple Woods aren't as connected to their school or their pathway as they would be if they took them at Oak Park. But knowing that if a student's going to the early college program, they are looking at going to a 2 or 4 year school after high school. One of the philosophical beliefs around this is it's for every student, whereas I think a lot of times high school is really more geared towards students that were planning to go to college. Like, let's teach calculus and let's teach the classics. But for our students that are looking to get into an industry much sooner, we want to make sure they have those skills in high school. So a student that's going to the early college program and knowing that they are going to go on for 4 more years of education after high school, you're not in as big of a rush to give them that technical expertise, because they're also going to be able to gain a great deal of that in college. A lot of times people would say, well, that student's not going to college, so they shouldn't take this challenging class. And I always felt the opposite was true. If you're going straight to the workforce after high school, we have to make you a great communicator right now. We have to make you collaborative right now. We have to make you a problem solver right now. Whereas students that are going to college, they have an extra 4 years to grow and mature, before they have to become adults out on their own. So I hope that answers Lee's question. So the early college program, AP courses, all of that are still going to be a big part of what we do at Oak Park. This just gives us an opportunity to help students take classes that are more connected to what they're interested in. I might have you answer this one, Dr. Stanley. Are all the tech core classes set so we can look at them for all 4 years?
The freshman year is set. We do have all of the classes planned out for the next 4 years, yes. I can probably share those with you at some point. I know that we have some stuff we can put in the chat, but as you get district communication, I believe you'll be getting something in the next week or so. We'll kind of piece that together for you. For sure, the freshman courses are all set, and we can give you an idea of what those courses look like, because there will be a lot of choice, especially past your sophomore year, if they choose to go more to the off-campus programs or doing early college, or, so there's a lot more choice there, depending on what your student wants to do. But yes, I can share those with you.
And in addition, when we share this video, we can share those resources. So that's a wonderful question. So we'll try to make sure we get you all those resources as well. And as Dr. Stanley mentioned too, as questions come up as you look through those resources, please email us, give us a call here at Oak Park High School. We'd be happy to answer any questions we can. Are there any more questions? Anyone else have questions they want to type in the chat, or if anyone's having trouble with the chat, they could unmute and ask that question.
All right. We must have just been that thorough.
Here we have another one. I'm glad we waited. So does OP generally encourage students to attend college, or is the communication on that this could seem to deter students from that goal? So wonderful question, Anna Marie. We encourage students to follow their passion and to follow their dreams and to have a plan B, C, and D. So this may not come to as a big shock to many of you, but a lot of our freshman students that play sports plan on being professional athletes. We all know that's a really, really wonderful goal, a very lofty goal, and often very hard to achieve. So what's your plan B? What's your plan C? So we want students to go to college. We want students to go on to post-secondary training, whether it's a traditional college, whether it's vocational school, whether it's some kind of an extensive internship within a business, whatever the case may be. But we also want to make sure that their experiences at Oak Park are diverse enough and give them the skill set needed to be successful no matter what life throws their way. I mean, if you all have looked at the statistics, the amount of students that were planning on going to college this year and enter the workforce instead, or trying to enter the workforce due to the pandemic, that was a circumstance outside of their control. But they had to do what they had to do, whether it was for their families or for themselves. And we want to make sure our students leave here with the potential to enter the workforce, go to college, go to a vocational school, enter one of the armed forces. So whatever the case may be. So, Anna Marie, I hope that answers your question, but we would never deter any students from going to college. Every adult in our building went to college. That's how we became teachers and in our different roles. So that's a wonderful experience. So no, I don't want you to feel that way, but we do know that about a third, 25% to a third of our students, that's not in their plan immediately after high school. However, we still encourage those same students to apply to colleges, to complete their FAFSA and do all those things, because they may decide in 6 months or 6 years that they do want to go on to college. So we try to make sure students are prepared for whatever it is they want to do currently and in the future.
And a big piece of that too, if they have an interest and they're in a pathway, through the guest speakers, through all of the experiences, they may find a path that they didn't even know existed within something they were interested in that may steer them either to school or maybe to a trade school or maybe to an apprenticeship. So this is a really good way for them to have those experiences and know what's out there in their area of interest.
And as someone that traditionally, I loved school. That's why I became an educator. I loved exactly how school was. This is very exciting. And I think it's going to be exciting for a lot of your students just because of what Dr. Stanley just said there. They're going to have access to so many different programs and resources and professionals. You know, a lot of times in school, the only adults they interact with are teachers. The opportunity that is in front of your students for the next 4 years to, if they want to be a pilot, let's get them connected to a pilot. If they, you know, if they want to be a stunt double in Hollywood, let's get them connected to a stunt double. So really the sky's the limit. And our students can be anything they want. We know they have a tremendous amount of potential, but in the past, the opportunity to realize that potential wasn't there for a lot of our students. So it's our job, myself, Dr. Stanley, and all the other adults at Oak Park to make sure every single kid, all of your students, all of the class of 2025 and beyond are getting connected to people that they look up to, that they admire, and they want to be like when they grow up. Other than their families, I'm sure you all are wonderful role models too. So.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you to Dr. Stanley. She did all the heavy lifting and did a wonderful job presenting. So, but if you do have any questions, please email us. It's not a bad idea to email both of us at the same time, and that way one of us can get back to you, or just call Oak Park High School, the main line, and say you need to talk to Chris Sarton or Jane Stanley about our schools and pathways for your student, and we'll be happy to help. Okay.
All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Have a wonderful night.